Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today we'll be discussing whether or not Godric Gryffindor had a destined heir, similar to Salazar Slytherin, and if one existed, who it could have been. Early on in the series, Chamber of Secrets to be exact, Harry and his fellow students learn that one of the founding members of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Salazar Slytherin, had a prophesized heir. This individual was believed to be a descendant of Slytherin himself, and was said to be the one who would reopen his Chamber of Secrets, release his basilisk, and enable the gigantic, fatal serpent to rid the school of impure mudblood students, just as Slytherin had always wanted. And as the events of Harry's second year unfolded, it became clear that his heir had at last long appeared, and not for the first time. This person was, at least in his humble opinion, none other than a young Lord Voldemort. Voldemort, who at the time of the first opening in the 1940s went by the name Tom Riddle, was the son of Merripy Gaunt and Tom Riddle Sr. While Tom's father was nothing more than a muggle, who Merripy had fallen helplessly in love with, she herself came from the House of Gaunt, a long line of pure-blood witches and wizards who, throughout more modern times, had famously and frequently made claims of their distant relation to the great and powerful Salazar Slytherin. And while the family's possession of certain Slytherin relics and belongings did prove they had a connection to the long-dead wizard, realistically, the heir of Slytherin could have been a dark witch or wizard born into any family branch distantly related to Salazar. Of course, it would need to be an individual who was psychotic enough to believe that Muggle-born and half-blood students were less worthy of learning magic than purebloods. But it was not a certainty that the heir of Slytherin would emerge from the House of Gaunt specifically. Alas, as it happened, the heir did turn out to be a descendant of the Gaunt family, the brilliant and entirely demented future Lord Voldemort, Tom Riddle, who flawlessly took up the mantle and crowned himself heir. Which brings us to the topic of today's video. If there was an heir of Slytherin, did any of the other founders have heirs that played into the crucial narrative that decided the fate of the wizarding world during Voldemort's second rise to power in the 1990s? For quite some time, many fans believe that the answer to this question was undoubtedly yes, and that the founder who had that important heir obviously had to be Godric Gryffindor. Presumably, this heir of Gryffindor would be a distant descendant of Godric, one who was meant to carry on his legacy of bravery and chivalry against the injustices built on the prejudiced thinking of blood supremacists like Slytherin. To these fans, and many others, this heir had to indeed be none other than Harry Potter. But then, J.K. Rowling gave an interview which essentially debunked this theory, a sad day for all theorists on this particular topic. The transcript from the interview goes as follows. What about Harry's family? His grandparents? Were they killed? No. This takes us into a more mundane territory. As a writer, it was more interesting, plot-wise, if Harry was completely alone. So I rather ruthlessly disposed of his entire family, apart from Aunt Petunia. I mean, James and Lily are massively important to the plot, of course, but the grandparents, no. And because I do like my backstory, Petunia and Lily's parents, normal muggle death. James's parents were elderly, were getting on a little when he was born, which explains the only child, very pampered, had him late in life, so he's an extra treasure, as often happens, I think. They were old in wizarding terms, and they died. They succumbed to a wizarding illness. That's as far as it goes. There's nothing serious or sinister about those deaths. I just needed them out of the way, so I killed them. That sort of shuts down the heir of Gryffindor theories as well. Yeah. Another one bites the dust. So, if not Harry, then who? Of course, there's always the possibility that there was no heir of Gryffindor, but where's the fun in that? So, with that in mind, I decided to do a bit of a deep dive into a theory I had around the possibility that the heir of Gryffindor may have been, drumroll please, Neville Longbottom. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Neville Longbottom was born in the summer of 1980, just days apart from Harry Potter, which was cause for some confusion in terms of who that famous prophecy was truly about. You know the one. The prophecy given by a typically inept Professor Sybil Trelawney regarding Voldemort and a boy wizard born as the 7th month dies, and whatnot. And while there is an argument to be made that Neville could have been the boy referred to in this very prophecy, for the sake of this video, let's just all agree that Trelawney's prophecy was about Harry, because maybe Neville was destined for another role, the role of the heir of Gryffindor. First of all, as a pureblood wizard born somewhere in Britain, Neville's lineage suggests that it's possible for the Longbottoms to have been descendants of Godric Gryffindor. You see, as far back as we can trace Neville's heritage, which admittedly isn't very far, his family was all of pureblood descent and born in and around Britain. His parents, Frank and Alice Longbottom, were also both members of the First Order of the Phoenix and accomplished aurors, suggesting that they valued and embodied the fighting nature and courage befitting of the kin of Godric Gryffindor, not to mention Neville's gran, Augusta Longbottom, who was as courageous as any auror, although not technically one herself. Her no-nonsense bravery was proven on a number of occasions, but none quite as well as the following exchange between her and Harry during the Battle of Hogwarts in the Deathly Hallows. "Have you seen my grandson? He's fighting." "Naturally," said the old lady proudly. "Excuse me, I must go and assist him." In addition to the fact that the Longbottoms possessed traits inherent to what you would expect from the descendants of Godric Gryffindor, and that it's technically biologically possible for Neville to have been Gryffindor's great-great-great etc. grandson, there are a few other clues that suggest how this theory could hold true. To start with, remember when Neville pulled the sword of Gryffindor from the Sorting Hat during the Battle of Hogwarts? Well, it said that only someone with the true spirit of Gryffindor, with a purity of heart, could do that. In that moment, Neville unequivocally proved how worthy he was of being recognized as a valiant, powerful wizard who could protect others and get stuff done. Considering he then used the sword to chop off the head of Voldemort's pet snake and final Horcrux, Nagini, this heroic moment was made all the more glorious. Can't you just see Godric Gryffindor dancing away merrily in the afterlife? I certainly can. In any case, this one valiant act of being able to pull Gryffindor's very sword out of a hat during his time of need speaks to the idea that he could be Godric's heir. Now, here's where it gets unexpectedly interesting. Neville's surname, Longbottom. Apparently, this last name is derived from Old English, which is what Godric would have been speaking during his lifetime. And roughly translated, it means Long Valley, or Valley Bottom. And what wizarding village was said to have occupied the bottom of a valley? Why, none other than Godric's Hollow. This means that it's very possible that the Longbottom family originally hailed from Godric's Hollow, and that they may have lived there for centuries as descendants of Gryffindor. So, considering that Neville could be related to Godric Gryffindor, came from a long line of witches and wizards who upheld the most favoured characteristics of the man, and was a Gryffindor student worthy of the magic of the Sword of Gryffindor, I think he's a great candidate to consider as the official and destined heir. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. What did you think? Do you agree with my theory that Neville Longbottom may have been the true heir of Gryffindor? And, as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and to forget to live.